Hi there. On some of the expanded content, sorry. Via like Ruby Ready Combat, would there be potentially a boomstick and Blizzard expansion pack, possibly?
Or Combat Ready?
Well, or like something like too akin to that, or
Oh, like would there be a boomstick and wizard, like genre-specific set of cards?
Sure, I think you could do like a
I think we actually have a boomstick and whiz card in the current bonus pack.
in the RT
Wiz's arm and boomstick's leg.
Wiz's arm and boomstick's leg are skills, I believe, that you can apply to your combo cards. But absolutely, like one of the things we would love to do with this whole idea of the tropes and creating those themes of 20. Essentially, there are 20 cards, there are 100 cards, and every 20 is a different theme. So making like expansions later on with different themes, whether they're like Death Battle related or specifically Ruby related or something else. Who knows what kind
Warner family of everything.
Maybe
a Scooby-Doo.
Maybe Warner Media could help us out a little bit, but again, it really depends on how the game does. Like, I'll be honest, when I initially pitched this, I had no idea if people would be interested. Like, I don't know if this is going to sell well. I hope it does, and I hope you guys like it. But if it does sell well, if people do like it, then hopefully, people in charge of the company will take notice, and they'll let us make more, and let us add those expansions, and maybe create more of the game, and just go from there. Like, I'd love to do more with it. So absolutely, there's no current plans, but absolutely we could if it works out.
So what was your process of balancing the cards with all these different types of dice and abilities?
Well, it came down to spreadsheets, always. When I would look at the abilities, he had some that, I was just super impressed with the prototype right off the bat, because I looked at stick figures, and you had like Blink and stuff, just an awesome blood king. But looking at all the things that were in this prototype, and saying, oh, this ability is represented like way too many times. Or when this happens, it doesn't feel good, like to my opponent, or like I feel like too good, So you gotta look at those sort of things. Just putting stuff on a spreadsheet like really, really helped. Like there's only so many uses of the blue die, and so many uses of the red die, because they can totally change how the battle goes.
When building the prototype, even before. Oh, it absolutely was. But when building the prototype, before we even did the whole pitch meeting and whatnot, a big thing for me was I knew I don't have a lot of experience with game making, so I knew I couldn't necessarily build a game that would be 100% completely well balanced. That was what you guys were there for. But I wanted to make sure there was at least something that could work, and it would still feel like you could have fun. And there has to be some element of balance to have fun, right? So the main thing I focused on was how many dice you get in one game, and whether or not it was even possible to lose all your dice. So I figured that, okay, the weapons have this many dice, the skills have this many dice, the armor takes away this many dice, and that was my main focus in terms of balance at first. And I don't think we changed that too much.
Yeah, for the most part, the faster, so you get initiative. Both players reveal. For the most part, every game is like blow for blow. You play card after card, except for kicking off a round. You play an armor, I play an armor at the same time.
Yes.
The faster one gets initiative, so then your
Armor has a speed. Each armor card has a speed value.
Yeah, so it's not how fast you lay the card.
Yeah.
It's not smooth as
I
possible.
mean, we can get those rules in there. But the faster cards have like less defense. And it's super slow, like the mech one that marketed has 4. So we kind of did that. Actually, the strongest card in the game is the Cone from Red versus Blue. It has like 5 or 6.
It's potentially the strongest card of the game.
Potentially.
It gives you every single armor piece,
Yeah.
except as you play more cards, it takes away armor.
But even
Which is
in the
awesome. It's really fun.
even in the amount of dice, there's some balancing in that. There's 7 of each color, but there's 15 clear ones or white ones, or regular die that have no special ability. So if you then use all the red ones, and you have a couple red, if he's just planning to build this fully red arsenal of dice, he then has to get a clear one. Because we don't want you to overload in a certain color.
Run out of available dice. That was actually probably one of the trickier things to figure out is how many dice can we have. It's like we've mentioned a little bit about like budget and stuff. And I've talked about before how Death Battle, it's not the most profitable show that Rooster Teeth has because just by its very nature, we use a lot of franchises and stuff that we just don't own. So we can only do so much and we can only get so much with it. So that kind of thought process was also given to the game. We had to kind of figure out how to work around some of the issues with that. And dice, in and of itself, is an expensive add-on to games. So it was very tricky at first figuring out how we can afford to incorporate a bunch of dice, but also to make it fun. And ultimately, the idea was, well, there can be a limited number of dice, 50, which is still a lot. But if you run out of a certain number of dice as it's playing, that's it. So there's like a resource management aspect to the gameplay now, which I really dug. It kind of went back and forth when we were talking about it, because some people didn't really like it at first, because it was a little weird. We had gone through the game design for at least a year at that point, and that had never come up. So introducing that into it kind of threw a lot of people off. But I think it's one of the best aspects of the game. Because you can have this strategy that you're starting off with at the very beginning of a round, and then your opponent has like a very similar strategy using the same dice, and it's up to you to figure that out and change your strategy before they do. Like there's so many different aspects to a battle, and that's how like an actual duel would work. So I think it works great. Maybe that's just.
I think it's good.
Thank you.
It is good.
Who else has questions?
Hi, so have you thought of maybe in the future adding possible like expansions or whatever you want to call it, where it might be like a single player or cooperative, there's like this super boss like Terrific Man or something.
Oh yeah.
And you have to work together and to build up characters that could fight them?
One of the original ideas, there were plenty of ideas thrown out when we were pitching it, right? But one of the thoughts that I had was like maybe arena cards that could weather things like that could affect the battle. Maybe like this kind of arena makes blue dice more usable or less usable or something like that, or it takes away all the red dice, stuff like that. I think that would be really cool to add on. Again, similar to the previous question about the expanding the tropes. Really depends on if the card game does well. If it does well, and we get the opportunity to do more, that's definitely one of the directions we can take it. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Let Christina ask a question.
Christina.
So she never speaks up as the meeting goes.
Hello.
Hi, would you guys ever consider making this a, like a video game? So like
Just had to
you
ask
play
that.
online with your other Death Battle friends, or if somebody pisses you off on Twitter, you can just challenge them to fight you.
Hey, that's
Tuesday, I'll schedule a meeting with you, and you tell me right there, pitch
I mean, that'd be fun.
It
I
would be
mean,
great. I don't know if you-
technically, thanks to Sophia's work, we already have the box and the dice in Unreal.
I don't think this has been mentioned anywhere, but there is actually, this box is in the Vicious Circle build. It's like.
Oh yeah, Easter egg.
Yeah, like,
If anybody's played that and seen the Death Battle game in the Vicious Circle demo, if you haven't played it yet, go play the Vicious Circle demo. It's awesome. And keep an eye out for the Death Battle box.
It would work really well as like a asynchronous game. Like, I did my turn, and text you, and they do your turn.
Text you.
Notification.
Notifications, I just got a notification.
Making it into like an online game would be kind of fun.
You want to
I
send
don't know.
a
if we
message
can
while you're at
do
it? Go aim.
So my question is, with how many episodes of Death Battle there are, you obviously couldn't fit everything into the current cards you have. So how exactly did you decide what that goes on the cards, and if there were multiple of things? Like I noticed you used Afro Samurai for the Katana card as opposed to Samurai Jack. So like if there were multiples of a certain type of item or skill, how did you decide which art really went with which, or was that more up to the artist's discretion?
is actually up to the artist, really, because the general idea of the cards was not necessarily to literally insert, Afro Samurai or any character, like, you're not gonna find Iron Man or Batman themselves in the deck. But you will find this card where there's a dude dressed up in a silly bat costume. So, so they were very much inspired by stuff that has been in Death Battle. But in terms of the art itself, we kind of just let the artists go crazy as far as I know.
Some of it was, like, look around, we have such an awesome community. And there's so many different faces. We want to represent that in the game. So, like, you were to get one, artist just.
Like, I think specifically that katana card, the idea is we would do like an Afro Samurai type, but in a Samurai Jack art style.
Yeah.
You know? And it's a lot of that stuff of like, how many different franchises can we nod to in the same piece of art so that it kind of protects us from somebody being like, that's directly out.
Yeah, so when we were doing the art for that card specifically, actually, it was a reference to Samurai Jack, but we didn't want to just draw Samurai Jack because legal reasons, of course, but also I'm a huge fan of Afro Samurai, and I was like, I think it would be cool to see him in Samurai Jack style, so I chose to go that route. But with a lot of cards, we kind of did that where it's like, let's make references to multiple things, so it can be a reference to whatever you want it to be a reference to. Like even one of the Ninja Turtle cards, where he's in the shell and you see his eyes. The weapon's from Naruto, but I mean, it's a weapon that is in Naruto. But it's so you can have multiple references.
Yeah, the art, each piece of art takes a lot of different inspirations.
Right.
Any other questions?
Hello. So while testing the game and playing it yourself, what do you think was the most bizarre character you ended up making with any combination of your cards?
Most bizarre character we could end up making. Oh my god.
Something with those weaponized
I mean, I could literally
Yeah,
build something right now. Let's see.
Like a magical
so
cat
I've
girl
got
with
somebody
three-sword-style hammer.
With, let's see, somebody wearing seduction armor.
Yes!
With, let's see. Okay, so seduction armor that is wielding Mjolnir. And also for some reason connected to a Holland from Genlock. It's not there, but they're just connected to it. And they're wearing the Cheese Master hat that Gus has. There you go. Oh wait, we need one more. Right, there's 3 skills. There's 3 skills. Oh, they summon demons. There you go. There you go. Like, there's all sorts of crazy combinations that can happen in the middle of the game. Whether you plan for it or not, like in the middle of a round, you might get draw new cards. Because you're drawing new cards all the time as well. You'll get something that is just so perfect for what you're building, or so weird that you just want to play it anyway.
You could
go for it.
You could actually use this game to make some extremely odd OCs.
That's what it is.
I think
It's
that
just
should be
OC
your
battle.
Next assignment is to go into your spreadsheet, find out how many possible combinations. How many OCs could you make with
20
those?
armor cards. There's wait, how many?
We can do this.
I know you can, that's why I'm
That's
saying.
way too much
Yeah,
math.
26.
I think 2060. So the funniest thing that I've encountered while playing is I've seen giant mechs with rocket launchers and all of these intimidating skills like instant hell murder up against the tiny furry animal with some scrappy, combination. But just due to pure dice luck, the thing that is this big wins against the tank.
That's actually something I really wanted in the game, and that the dice really helps with. Like in Death Battle, realistically, one character is going to have way better odds than the other, but there's always still a little chance for the other one, right? Like, a character A may win 900 out of 1,000 times, but that other character still wins 100 times, right? So even if you feel like you're down on your luck and your card selection is not necessarily as good as your opponent's, you still have a chance to win. You can still pull it off, and that's my favorite thing about the game, I think. Like, you never know exactly how it's going to go.
There was a point when Kara and I were playtesting it, and I had like 15 die, and I had stole most of hers. I think she had 3, and I got nothing. She just killed me.
Yeah, it was shocking, really.
Right, but not luck.
Hey, luck is the best now.
Hi guys, so my question for you is, with the amount of cards you have, and how you said there are strategies for multiple playstyles, do you think your game has the potential to become, say, like a tournament game, like a league?
Well, there's a bit of luck, but there is still strategy in terms of building the odds to be in your favor. I definitely thought about that when coming up with the idea, and I we had so many ideas around that while we were making it, so.
With the current rules, we could have done a tournament at the mothership booth. Like,
Absolutely.
easy. Like, just have a bracket, you play, you win, you move on.
I think a tournament like a playstyle can absolutely happen. I think if enough expansions do happen, we could eventually evolve a new rule set where there is a deck building aspect to it. Like,
Absolutely.
the game, the way it's set up right now, it could evolve into something bigger down the line. Right now, it is very much like, this is the box. It's set up for 2 people to play and have a lot of fun. And we'll see what happens. Like,
So
that's
buy
kinda
it.
where we're at right now. So if you guys really like the game, first of all, thank you so much. But second, like, maybe we can do more. We'll see. I would love to, basically. Like, I would love to.
Maybe we got time for like 2 more.
So, I'm in marketing, so I'm gonna share this a little bit too. I'm hearing a lot of, if it does well, I'm like, okay, well, what does doing well actually look like for you? And how do you kind of come up with your personal goals when you're trying to figure out, like, what you want to do?
So, to give a little back history, I mean, we've done a few games before this. We came out pretty strong with MDB a couple years ago on Kickstarter, and we really did that as a test bed. We had never done a game before. We didn't know how the community would react. They reacted very, very well. Unfortunately, at the time the person was in place managing that did not manage it well, and probably brought in too many copies after it went to Kickstarter. So put it in an uncomfortable position of having a lot of inventory of that certain game has made it a little more difficult for us to make games now, as we're in a more conscious, more inventory conscious place now. So when we went to make Heist, we didn't make nearly as many copies. We wanted to make sure we could sell what we get and we don't sit on it. That's just kind of a way in merchandise in general and e-commerce to make sure we're not garnering any undue costs. There's always this invisible thing that a lot of people don't know about, which is warehousing costs and things like that. We don't want that to happen with any new products that we come out with. So we've come back and lowered our sale expectations so that the best thing we can do is sell out of an item and then be like, cool, let's make more of it. So we're actually went very, very low on our order quantities for Death Battle. We think it's very, very achievable to sell out with the community that we have. And then we go, okay, cool. We beat that little goal. Let's see what we can hit next. And that will, instead of the negative reaction we kind of got on the back end of MDB, I think we were in a really good spot to hopefully do more stuff afterwards. But yeah.
So, first of all, my name's Ben, and as a budding game developer, and I develop games of a broad spectrum, or I want to, what advice would you guys give to someone who is just starting out and has a part-time job somewhere?
Well, what's your goal would be the first thing. If you're, like, let's say you're making a game right now, or maybe you have an answer to that?
Yes, I have a game right here that I'm going to be pitching to you later.
All right, that's a great start. Playtesting, like, getting your core concept locked and loaded, like, nice and solid. But also knowing, hey, this is my part-time thing. Sometimes it's the right thing for everything into something like that. Sometimes it's like, I just get the core prototype blocked,
Okay.
test it a bit, iterate, test, and build.
Okay.
And then eventually go to the next step, like, all right, is this something that I really believe in? And then people like, Carrot, I can make it look beautiful or more marketable, things like that.
Okay.
And from an artist's standpoint too, because I've heard the same question from folks who are wanting to start out in art, don't really wait for it to happen, just find opportunities or make them. So for instance, if you're pitching a game and making prototypes, if you have any friends who are artists who you know are reliable, you go up to them and go, hey, you know, I'm making this really cool project, would you be interested? You might get some bites. I didn't start freelancing with Rooster Teeth. I started freelancing with student projects, and I actually don't know if the first game I worked on has even come out yet. It was a Kickstarter game, and like 5 years ago, and it was just a bunch of friends who were like, hey, you illustrate stuff and you do graphic design. We're making this indie project, go for it. And they just started from the ground up.
Actually, I always forget about it, but I did that exact thing. I had a game I made with a buddy about dinosaurs. We had it for like 2 years. I'm like, well, let's make a pretty version of this and see what, we invited the public to it, just to some warehouse. Great reception, so we were like, all right, let's talk to some artists. We did a Kickstarter, and we didn't have a Zach. So it did deliver, but it delivered like 6 years late. Don't do that, step one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, talking to Bill.
Well, thank you guys again so much for coming out, giving us the opportunity to show the game to you. I have given Ben the list, there's a number next to all those emails, and I'm just gonna random number generator right here. Ben, number 11.
Number 11 is Overgiven.
Is Overgiven? All right, there you go. Let's give it up for everybody on stage too.